You've probably heard of Kaizen, right? That Japanese philosophy of small, continuous improvements, tweaking an assembly line to get it just right. But what if that's just scratching the surface? What if that's just the tip of a massive iceberg? Today, we're diving into a pretty radical reinterpretation that takes Kaizen way beyond the factory floor and into the very fabric of reality itself. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's start with an idea a lot of us have come across, this whole concept of rewiring our brains. People like Dr. Joe Dispenza talk about how, through repetition, we can literally forge new neural pathways. You know the saying, nerve cells that fire together, wire together? It's an incredible model for making real personal change. But here's where we take a huge leap. What if that whole rewiring process isn't just something that happens inside our skulls? What if this constant refinement is actually a fundamental protocol for how our entire reality operates? Now that is the core idea we're going to unpack today. Right, so again, the traditional view of Kaizen is super practical. You see a problem on an assembly line, you make a small tweak, eliminate waste, speed things up. It's all about material efficiency. But the sources we're looking at here suggest that this view, well, it's just a shadow of a much, much bigger truth. So these sources propose this completely different framework they call sovereign governance. In this paradigm, reality isn't just some objective one-size-fits-all space. It's actually a personalized incubator, custom-built to develop what's called our NAFs, which is basically our cognitive core, our very essence. And suddenly, Kaizen isn't about making things better anymore. It becomes a universal requirement for making ourselves better, by refining how we see and interact with everything around us. To really get this, we have to split truth into two different concepts. First, you have acidic, or truthfulness. Think of this as the surface-level event, what you can see, touch, and measure. A stock market crash, for example, that's a real thing that happened. It is truthful. But it is not the ultimate truth. Because underneath that surface event, you have al-haq, the truth. This is the deep, underlying principle, the operational reality that caused the crash in the first place. So the truthful event was the market crashing, but the truth might be a systemic imbalance, what the sources call riba, that made that crash inevitable. So in this new model, Kaizen is the protocol for seeing past the surface apparition to understand and fix the underlying truth. Okay, so how do we actually use this? How do we turn Kaizen from a simple business tactic into this powerful governance protocol for perceiving reality? Well, this model maps it all out onto 4 key pillars, and each one is a total reimagining of a classic Kaizen idea. Let's jump into our first pillar. On the factory floor, waste is pretty simple. It's leftover material, wasted time. But in this cognitive framework, waste is something way more insidious. Here, waste is defined as bias noise. It's all the mental static, the flawed logic, the systemic imbalances that corrupt our thinking. It creates what the sources call a spiderweb of fragile logic. It might look complex, but you apply a little pressure and the whole thing falls apart. And the solution for this is just a brilliant metaphor called the pressing, like making fresh juice. Step 1, you identify the pulp, all that noisy, messy, inefficient data. Step 2, you apply the press by running a governance audit to squeeze out all that fragile logic. And finally, you extract the pure juice, the underlying truth, the el-haq that was hidden inside all that noise. Pillar 2 completely reframes the entire goal of productivity. We're not talking about just churning out more stuff. We're talking about cultivating a state of incredible, almost supernatural efficiency. In this sovereign governance framework, real productivity has a name, Baraka. And it's not just a 10% increase in output. It's described as an efficiency multiplier. It's this state of exponential return that just shows up when a person or a system is perfectly, absolutely aligned with its intended purpose. So, how do you get there? According to the sources, it happens when your cognitive vector, your fundamental way of thinking and being, gets perfectly synchronized with the deen, which is the established natural order of things. When that alignment is perfect, the system just works. The sources say that governance executors even help arrange your worldview to make things operate frictionlessly. All right, our third pillar. This one gets to the heart of the continual part of continuous improvement. This isn't about just running in a loop, making things a tiny bit better each time. No, this is about true fundamental evolution. So here's the absolute key. Every single cycle of improvement must create a new schema. The sources call it izam. Think of it like building a new, solid, bone-like structure for your knowledge to stand on. You're not just patching up the old system. You are building a stronger foundation every single time. And this process culminates in what's called anshana, or evolution. The system doesn't just get a little better, it is fundamentally reborn as a new creation. The goal you just achieved? That's not the end. That becomes the brand new, higher baseline to launch your next cycle from. And finally, we have the fourth pillar, which is so crucial. It recognizes that none of this can happen in a silo. Real improvement has to flow, it has to benefit the entire network, not just one isolated part. Here, the concept of zakat is completely reframed. It's not about charity in the traditional sense. It's about the pure, efficient transfer of insights and truth between all the nodes in a network. And this flow is so important, it's even measured by something called the connectivity tensor, which is basically just a way to quantify how well that purified knowledge is actually getting around. Well, that naturally brings up a pretty critical question. If this flow of pure knowledge is the lifeblood of the whole system, what happens when it gets blocked? What happens when it gets corrupted or just stuck? The result is a condition the sources call cognitive liquidity. And honestly, the best way to understand this is as the organizational version of anxiety. The right ideas and insights might exist somewhere in the system, but they're trapped. They can't be deployed. And this leads to massive frustration, stagnation, a kind of collective paralysis. So, when you put all four of these incredible pillars together, what do you get? You get a powerful new vision for how a system is supposed to run. It's a vision that aims for a state of zero-lag governance, where the gap between seeing the truth and acting on it becomes zero. This table just brings it all together beautifully. You can literally see the paradigm shift. On the left, you have the standard, rational, factory floor view of Kaizen. But on the right, under sovereign governance, every single concept is elevated. Waste isn't just inventory, it's mental noise. Productivity isn't output, it's an exponential state of flow. Improvement isn't a small step, it's total evolution. And sharing knowledge isn't a memo, it's the purified transfer of truth itself. This perspective really changes everything, doesn't it? It means that every time you try to fix a process, you're not just problem solving, you're actually performing an act of salah, or cognitive recalibration. You're realigning your mind with a deeper truth. And every success isn't just a win for you, it's a form of zakat, a vital contribution to the health and growth of the entire network. And that's really what I want to leave you with. Take a look at your own life, at your work, in your projects, even in your daily habits. What noisy, truthful process is just an apparition, just a surface-level event that's waiting for you to apply the press and extract its real underlying truth? What could you evolve?